What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking about a truly stacked fight weekend for combat sports, as well as some news, and then we'll talk about Chivas' next game. First, we'll get into the dazn boxing card. A good boxing card it is in Cardiff, Wales. I'll start off by talking about a fighter that I will be looking forward to watch, and that being Jordan Thompson, a cruiserweight who I believe a lot of people over here in America have not really heard of, but I believe he will put on another good performance. Now we'll get straight into the main event, Joecordina versus Shavkatrakhmonov for the IBF Super Featherweight World title. I'll start off by talking about Joe. He currently has a record of 15-0 with 9 knockouts. Joe is an Olympian. Now, he did not medal in those Olympic Games. I feel as if Joe is a very tough fighter to hit, as he is very, very fast, and he is a boxer who likes to counter. The power and timing was on display his last fight, as he landed a one-shot knockout on Kenichi Ogawa. When he gets confident, he does leave himself open at times when he is pressuring his opponent. Now, he has been in some close fights. His boxing ability seems to always prevail. Now we'll get into Shavkatrakhmonov. He is currently 17-0-1, 14 of those wins being by knockout, and that draw was to Jojo Diaz 2 years ago. Now, I feel as if Rakhmonov is a pressure fighter that likes to walk his opponents down and isn't throwing much punches on the way in. Rakhmonov has been hurt and dropped multiple times in his career. He's not the fastest fighter, and he stays still at times, leaving a good target for his opponents. The one thing Rakhmonov has in his favor is the power. I feel as if he could be down on the cards, but his power will always be the great equalizer. The best thing for Rakhmonov is to try and fight a stationary target, and he will try to do that against Joe by targeting his body. He will try to work that from the beginning. Now, as for who I see winning the fight, I believe Joe will be able to beat Rakhmonov, as he is the better and faster boxer, and it will be difficult for Rakhmonov to slow Joe down, but I would pick a Joe knockout. As for the boxing card we have been wanting for some time now, it is the Showtime card with the main event Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. There isn't really much of an undercard. The only prospect I want to see really is Elijah Garcia. I don't believe he's related to Ryan. No, he fought a little over 1 month ago, and he was able to get a stoppage over a previously undefeated opponent. A couple other names who I will be watching are Trent Simpson and Floyd Schofield. Those are another two prospects who I want to see fight. The co-main event is a good fight between David Morrell. He will be putting up his WBA super middleweight title against Yamaguchi Falcao. I won't really be talking about this fight, as I feel we know who will win, and that will be David. David will win this fight, and that will set up another fight for him against David Benavidez to see who will be able to fight Canelo next May. Now, for the main event, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. What a fight. This will be a truly great fight between two talented fighters. I'll start off by talking about Ryan Garcia. Ryan is currently 23-0 with 19 wins coming by knockout. This will be Ryan's first time fighting under 138 pounds in over 2 years, as this fight will be a catch weight at 136 pounds. There is also a 10-pound rehydration clause, which I believe will play a huge factor in it as well. But Ryan is also 5 inches taller than Tank and has a longer reach. This is going to probably not be much of a problem for Tank, as he has been fighting taller fighters basically his whole career. Now, Ryan has been really pressuring his opponents his last couple fights since moving up in weight, but with that pressure comes the possibility of the opponent easily being able to counter Ryan. Ryan is also a very fast and accurate puncher. Ryan obviously has power, as he has knocked out 83% of the opponents he's faced. Ryan still has that glaring problem in his defense. He usually leaves his hands low and his chin up high, especially when he's pulling back. Now, we haven't seen Ryan in the ring in almost a year. We could only hope that he's been working on this. And another thing, body work is usually a key for Ryan, but I believe it will be hard for him to land on Tank's body, as Tank is so small and compact. Now, for Tank Davis, he is 28-0 with 26 wins coming by knockout. absolutely crazy. Now, talking a little bit more about Tank. Tank has a really high ring IQ. He is so smart when it comes to boxing. Tank is an incredibly slow starter though, as he does take time to figure out his opponent. He does have a really good counter left hook, which would be a positive as that's a punch that has hurt Ryan before. Tank is not the best fighting off his back foot. I do believe Tank will have to use his jab to close the distance, and he does have a very good jab as well. The body work will as well be key here for Tank, as the more he could have Ryan thinking about the body, the more opportunities he'll have for the headshots. Tank also has that crazy power, of course, a 93% knockout percentage in his career. This fight could end at any moment from either fighters. Now, as for who I have winning this fight, if I were a betting man, I would pick a Tank Davis victory by knockout, but I personally am a fan of Ryan, so I will be rooting for him to win this fight. Now, getting into Bellator, they have two events going down this weekend, one on Friday and another on Saturday. The first event doesn't interest me at all. It's headlined by Liz Carmouche and Diana Bennett too. The second one, on the other hand, is the one I'll want to see, as Raufeonstots will be facing patchymix. Now, a fighter who I'll be looking forward to watching on the undercard is Aaronpico. Yes, he was at one point one of the most hyped prospects, and he hasn't had the best of luck so far, as he is 10-4 in his MMA career, but he's still so young and still has so much potential, in my opinion. He is fighting a very tough opponent in Otto Rodriguez. Now, getting straight into the main event, Raufeonstots versus patchymix. This is the finale of the Bantamweight Grand Prix. I'll start off by talking about patchymix. He has a record of 17 wins, 1 loss, 13 of those wins coming by finish, 12 of those being by submission. His lone loss being by decision almost 3 years ago. Since that loss, he has gone on a streak of 4 wins in a row, and in that time, he has 3 submission wins and 1 decision. Now, Patchy is great when it comes to anything on the ground, taking his opponent's back, grappling, you name it, he's elite at it. Patchy's stand-up is not the best, but it is decent enough to stay in a fight. There's times where Patchy does overextend and get a little too wild, leaving himself open to catch hard counters. But if Patchy finds any problems, he will usually just take his opponents down to the ground and control them there. Now, talking about Raufeonstots, he has a record of 19 wins and 1 loss. 8 wins coming by finishes, with 4 knockouts and 4 submissions. Now, his lone loss came to one of the best bantamweights in the world, Merab Dvalishvili. He was knocked out, and the fight was almost 5 years ago. Now, Stotts is a good stand-up fighter. He has a very good ring IQ as well. His takedown defense is also very good. When Stotts is laying on the ground, though, is when I feel he struggles the most. Stotts will at times attempt a takedown, but really isn't looking to do anything with it, as the ground is not where he wants to be, especially not with Patchy. Now, as for who I have winning the fight, I believe Patchy will be able to pull out the submission win, as Stott seems to always give his backup when he's getting taken down by his opponents. It will be probably the best MMA fight of the weekend, in my opinion. Now we'll get into the UFC Fight Night card. It is a pretty good Fight Night card with a couple good prospects on it, as well as some good fights. First, I'll get into the prospects I will be watching, and that is a heavyweight and is the TUF 30 winner, Muhammad Usman. He is fighting Justin Tafa, an undefeated heavyweight with 4 wins, all coming by knockouts. Tafa has not made it past the second round ever. Muhammad is a 34-year-old prospect, but being a TUF winner gives him major spotlight, and also as well as being the brother of one of the best champions. But I won't really be getting into that. It will be a good fight, in my opinion, a very tough fight for Muhammad. Now, getting into another fight I believe will be good, that being Bobby Green versus Jared Gordon. Bobby has said that this will be the last fight of his career, a career that has spanned over 15 years in many promotions, most notably in Strikeforce and the UFC. Now, Jared is coming off of a very good performance against Paddy Pimblett. Say what you want about the fight, but it was a good close fight between the two. This one will be a good fight. Now for the main event, a pair of badass heavyweights will be going at it. Sergeipavlovich will be facing curtisblaydes, the respective 3 and 4 ranked UFC heavyweights. I'll start off by talking about curtisblaydes. He currently has a record of 17 wins, 3 losses, 12 of those wins being by knockout. His last loss coming 2 years ago to Derek Lewis. Curtis has only lost to the previously mentioned Lewis and Francis Ngannou twice. Now, I see Curtis as having a good stand up game. He's also really good at the little subtle things. Feints, stance switches, and changing levels are all things Curtis uses to make his opponents start to overthink and lead to more openings for him. Curtis does have good takedowns. It's what he does on the ground with his opponents. I feel as if that's what really sets him apart. He won't attempt a submission, but will ground and pound the shit out of his opponents. When he's not ground and pounding his opponents, he's just racking up control time. There are times that Curtis does get a little reckless with his punches or his takedowns, and that leads to him taking unnecessary punishment. He has also had problems with his eyes swelling up. Now I will be talking about Sergeipavlovich. He has a record of 17 wins, 1 loss, with 14 of those wins coming by knockout. His lone loss came to Alistair Overeem almost 5 years ago. Sergey hasn't been past the first round in almost 6 years, as he has been knocking out his opponents in the first round, and the loss he suffered against Alistair was also in the first round. Now, Sergey obviously has crazy stupid power, and he does get a little crazy at times and leaves himself open to take shots, but more times than not, Sergey lands first. Sergey also likes to impose himself with his presence on his opponents and closes the distance between the two. But as well, he doesn't throw many shots to close the distance. He's usually just walking forward. He does throw really wide shots at times. From the fights I've seen, he hasn't really showed much of a ground game at all. So this will be a good fight between styles. But as for who I have winning, I believe Curtis will have the edge, as he is more of an all-around fighter. But I don't believe Curtis will even attempt to try to take him down. I believe this will mostly be a stand-up fight. Now, getting into the Chivas game, they will be playing at home against Cruzazul in another crucial game for both teams. Now, Cruzazul is being coached by Tuca Ferretti. He is one of the most tenured coaches in the league, going up against one of the newest coaches. In the past 5 games going up against each other, there has been 3 wins for Cruzazul, 1 draw, and 1 win for Chivas. In their last match, Cruzazul came out victorious, winning 2-1. Now, during their previous 5 matches in this clausura, Cruzazul has gone 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Their last match being a loss to America on Saturday. They will be without forward Michael Estrada this game, as he was shown a red card in the last game. Now, as for Chivas, in their last 5 games, they are also 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. But with their 2 wins being their most recent games, in the most recent games, they haven't looked the best, but they have still been able to pull out the victory. Now, Chivas will also be without Jesus Orozco due to an accumulation of yellow cards. Now, for who I believe will win this game, I believe Chivas will be able to pull out a 1-0 win. This will be a very close, a very hard-fought game, as there is so much on the line for both teams. Now for some news, the co-main event for this fight night, Song Yadong versus Ricky Simone, has been moved to next week's fight night, as the UFC wasn't able to find another opponent for Arman Tsarukyan. Regarding to the UFC 288 co-main event, it looked as if the UFC was going to match up Gilbert Burns versus Bilal Muhammad, but now it looks like if it's off, as Bilal wanted a catchweight fight since he's not in shape, as he hasn't been training due to Ramadan, and the fight is 2 weeks away, but Gilbert, on the other hand, doesn't want that. That'll be it for me today. Thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you guys next week as we review these fights. See you then.